The phone buzzed on the table, breaking the silence of my small, sunlit apartment in Chiang Mai. I glanced at the screen, my heart skipping a beat when I saw the name, Lila. My older sister. We hadn't spoken in weeks, not since she'd casually mentioned the family's upcoming adventure vacation to Thailand. A vacation I wasn't invited to. I hesitated before answering. "Hey, Lila," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "Hey, Mia," she replied, her tone cheerful but distant. "Just wanted to check in. How's life in the land of smiles?" I forced a smile, even though she couldn't see it. "It's good. Busy but good. How's the planning for the big trip going?" There was a pause on the other end, and I could almost hear her weighing her words. "It's going great. We've got everything booked. Hiking, jungle treks, waterfall rappelling. You know, the usual adventure stuff. It's going to be epic." I clenched my fist, my nails digging into my palm. "Sounds like it," I said, my voice tight. "And you're sure I wouldn't enjoy it?" Another pause. "Mia, come on. You're not exactly the adventurous type. Remember how you freaked out when we went camping that one time? You stayed in the car the whole weekend. This trip is for people who can handle roughing it." I took a deep breath, staring out at the lush green mountains visible from my balcony. "Lila, I've been living in Thailand for 3 years. I've hiked through jungles, climbed cliffs, and explored places most tourists never see. I think I can handle a little adventure." She laughed, but it wasn't a kind laugh. It was the kind of laugh that made me feel small. "Living in a city like Chiang Mai isn't exactly roughing it, Mia. This trip is for real adventures. Mom and Dad agree. It's just not your thing." I bit my lip, holding back the words I wanted to scream. "You don't know me. You haven't bothered to ask." Instead, I said, "Okay, Lila. Have fun on your trip." "Thanks, Mia. Take care," she said, and the line went dead. I sat there for a long time, the phone still in my hand, staring at the mountains. The irony was almost too much to bear. My family, my adventurous family, was coming to Thailand, the country I now called home, and they didn't want me there. They didn't think I could handle it. They didn't think I belonged. What they didn't know was that for the past 3 years, I'd been leading adventure tours through some of the most challenging terrain in northern Thailand. I'd guided groups through dense jungles, down rushing rivers, and into remote hill tribe villages where few outsiders ever ventured. I'd become someone they wouldn't recognize, someone confident, capable, and yes, adventurous. But they'd never asked. They'd never bothered to see who I'd become. 6 weeks later, I was sitting in a small cafe in Chiang Mai, sipping a cup of strong Thai coffee, when my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, but it was local. I answered cautiously. "Hello. Is this Mia Carter?" a man's voice asked, his English accented with the melodic tones of Thai. "Yes, this is Mia. This is Somchai from Northern Star Tours. Your sister Lila gave this number as an emergency contact. There has been an incident with their tour group." My heart dropped. "What kind of incident?" "Is everyone okay?" "Everyone is safe," he assured me quickly. "But the group is stranded. Heavy rain has caused flooding on the main trail back to base camp. Your sister and her family are at a remote village in Doi Inthanon National Park." I knew exactly where they were. Ban Mae Klang Wong, a Karen Hill tribe village I'd visited dozens of times. It was beautiful, but isolated, especially during the monsoon season. "I'll handle it," I said, my voice firm. "Tell my sister I'm on my way." Within an hour, I was in my rugged 4-wheel drive truck, heading north with a truck full of emergency supplies. The irony wasn't lost on me. My adventure-seeking family was stuck in a remote village, while boring, predictable Mia was coming to their rescue. The drive was long and treacherous, the rain coming down in sheets. By the time I reached the village, darkness was falling, and the rain had only intensified. Inside the community hall, about 20 bedraggled tourists sat on floor mats, looking miserable. A young Thai guide was trying to explain something, while an elderly village headman looked on with concern. "But you said rescue teams would come today," one woman exclaimed, her voice rising in frustration. "Now you're telling us it might be tomorrow?" The guide smiled nervously. "Very sorry. Weather very bad. No can do." "This is ridiculous," my brother Ethan muttered loudly. "We paid premium rates for an expert guide, And now we're stuck in the middle of nowhere. At least we have shelter, my father pointed out, ever the voice of reason. And the villagers have been kind. Kind won't get us back to civilization, Lila snapped. This isn't the adventure I signed up for. I stepped into the light, my voice cutting through the tension. Sawadee ka, I said in fluent Thai, addressing the headman. Som chai, it's good to see you again. The old man turned, his face breaking into a wide smile. Mia, we did not expect you today. The room fell silent as all eyes turned toward me. My family looked stunned. Switching to English, I addressed the group. Hello, everyone. My name is Mia Carter. I'm a senior expedition leader with Adventure Elite Tours. I understand you're having some difficulties, and I'm here to help. Mia, my mother managed, her voice trembling. What are you doing here? How did you get here? I drove, I said simply. The good news is that we can get you all back to Chiang Mai tomorrow morning. I know an alternate route that avoids the flooded areas. As the Northern Star Guide began organizing sleeping arrangements, my family approached me, still looking shell-shocked. I don't understand, Lila said, her voice barely above a whisper. How did you even know we were here? The tour company called me, I explained. I work with another tour company. We specialize in more authentic experiences than Northern Star. You're a tour guide? My father asked, his voice incredulous. For 3 years, I replied. Since I moved to Thailand. I lead expedition tours through northern Thailand, specializing in ecological and cultural immersion experiences. Why didn't you tell us? Lila demanded, her eyes narrowing. I met her gaze steadily. Would you have believed me? You've all been so convinced that I'm not adventure material. Would it really have changed anything if I told you? The silence that followed was answer enough. That night, as the rain drummed on the thatched roof above us, I sat with my family in the home of a Karen family I knew well. The air was thick with the scent of wood smoke and the sound of distant thunder. I still can't believe this, Lila said, shaking her head. My little sister, the adventure guide. Why didn't you ever tell us? I considered my answer carefully. At first, because I wasn't sure it would last. Then, when I realized this was what I wanted to do long-term, I tried to tell you. But you all seemed so convinced that I was just working some desk job, hiding from the real world. And then I paused, my voice catching. When you planned this trip and specifically excluded me because I wasn't adventure material, it just confirmed what I already knew. You don't see me. You see the person you think I am. My father was the first to speak. You're right, Mia. We've been seeing what we expected to see, not what was actually there. I'm sorry. Lila looked down at her hands. You were always so careful growing up. Always planning, always playing it safe. I guess I didn't think you could change. People change, Lila, I said softly. Living abroad does that to you. It forces you to adapt, to find strength you didn't know you had. Will you show us? Lila asked suddenly, her eyes meeting mine. Your Thailand, I mean. Not the tourist version we signed up for, but the real thing. The parts you love. I blinked in surprise. You want me to be your guide? If you'll have us, my father said. I looked at their expectant faces, and for the first time in years, I felt like they were actually seeing me. The real me, not the version they'd created in their minds. I'd like that, I said finally. But fair warning, my tours aren't the luxury experience you signed up for. We go off the beaten path. Way off. After today, my mother said with surprising determination, I think we can handle it. The next morning, the skies cleared, and with them came a renewed sense of purpose. I woke before dawn to confer with the village headman about road conditions and organized transportation. By the time my family emerged, bleary-eyed but rested, I had already arranged everything. Good morning, I greeted them, handing out cups of strong local coffee. We'll be leaving in about an hour. The village has prepared breakfast for everyone. My father accepted his cup with an appreciative nod. You've been up for a while, haven't you? Part of the job, I shrugged. Early mornings, late nights, and a lot of problem-solving in between. As we ate breakfast, a simple but hearty meal of rice porridge, eggs, and fresh fruit, I explained the route back to Chiang Mai. It'll take about 5 hours, I told the group. The eastern road is longer, but it's on higher ground, so we'll avoid the flooding. We'll need to cross one stream, but the village has lent us extra vehicles. The Northern Star guide, Somchai, watched me with a mixture of admiration and relief. It was clear he was out of his depth in this situation. Your sister is very skilled, he said to Lila. Very respected among guides in Chiang Mai. Lila looked at me with new eyes. Apparently, there's a lot we didn't know about Mia. The journey back was challenging but manageable. I led our small convoy of four-wheel drive trucks through muddy, slick roads and narrow mountain passes, stopping occasionally to clear debris or check the route. My family watched as I communicated effortlessly with local villagers, navigated tricky terrain, and kept the group's spirits up with stories about the region. The monsoon season is actually my favorite time to guide, I explained as we paused at a scenic overlook, the mountains wrapped in mist. The tourists are fewer, the landscapes are more dramatic, and the challenges make it interesting. Challenges like rescuing stranded family members? Ethan quipped. I laughed. That's a first, actually. By mid-afternoon, we reached Chiang Mai. As the group dispersed with relieved thank yous, Somchai approached me. Adventure Elite is lucky to have you, he said sincerely. Would you consider perhaps giving some training to our guides? I'd be happy to discuss it, I replied, handing him my card. Call my office next week. After he left, I turned to my family. Well, you're back to civilization. I assume Northern Star will rearrange the rest of your tour. Actually, my mother said, exchanging glances with my father, we were hoping you might have some suggestions. Something more authentic. I smiled slowly. As a matter of fact, I do have a few days free. How would you feel about a custom tour? The real Thailand, not the tourist version. The eagerness on their faces was all the answer I needed. 2 days later, we set out on what I privately called my reality tour. I canceled their remaining bookings with Northern Star, much to their disappointment, and crafted an itinerary that showcased my Thailand. We started in Chiang Mai, but not with the typical temple tours. Instead, I took them to an early morning almsgiving ceremony with local monks, then to a market where I knew all the vendors by name. We ate breakfast at a tiny stall where the owner, an elderly woman named Chanya, greeted me with hugs and insisted on feeding my family her special coconut rice. She says you saved her grandson's business last year, my father said as I translated Chanya's rapid Thai. His coffee farm was struggling, I explained. I brought some investors to see it. That's all. That's all, Lila repeated, shaking her head in wonder. You're like a completely different person here. No, I corrected gently. This is who I've always been. You're just seeing it for the first time. Over the next few days, I showed them my world. We hiked trails I'd discovered, visited remote temples where tourists rarely ventured, and stayed in communities where I'd built relationships through years of respectful visits. We stayed in simple guest houses rather than luxury resorts, ate at local eateries instead of tourist restaurants, and traveled by whatever means made sense, sometimes in shared pickup trucks, sometimes on motorbikes, and occasionally on foot. My family's transformation was remarkable. My mother, who had always been hesitant about foreign food, was now eagerly trying everything from spicy som tam to fermented sausages. My father, typically reserved, was conversing with locals using the Thai phrases I'd taught him. Ethan had abandoned his expensive camera in favor of genuine experiences, and Lila, perhaps the most surprising, had stopped documenting everything for social media and started simply living in the moment. I get it now, she told me one evening as we sat on a hillside, watching the sunset over terraced rice fields. Why you stayed. Why you never told us. We wouldn't have understood. I should have tried harder to explain, I admitted. Instead, I just let the distance grow. She bumped my shoulder gently. Well, I'm glad we got lost. Even if it took nearly drowning in monsoon rains to see who you really are. I laughed. Not exactly the family reunion I would have planned, but effective. So, are you ever coming home? She asked hesitantly. I gestured at the landscape spread before us. The lush hills, the glowing sky, the distant villages with lights beginning to twinkle on. This is home, Lila. This is where I belong. She nodded slowly, finally understanding. Then we'll just have to visit more often. And next time we'll ask for the expert guide from the beginning. As darkness fell and we made our way back to our guest house, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in years. The gap between who my family thought I was and who I'd become was finally closing. They were seeing me, truly seeing me, for the first time. And I was rediscovering them, too, beyond the roles we'd all fallen into so comfortably. My mother's surprising adaptability, my father's quiet curiosity, Lila's growing self-awareness, and Ethan's unexpected depth. Perhaps it had taken getting lost for all of us to find our way back to each other.